The first time Daniel Brooks stood on the ridge overlooking Clearwater Valley, the morning sun caught the lake just right, rippling gold across the surface like God's own breath. He'd built the dam himself, stone by stone, 30 years ago. Back then, it wasn't about money or legacy. It was about promise. The promise he made to his late wife, Mary, to turn this barren stretch of Montana land into a sanctuary for life. And for 3 decades, it was exactly that. Fish swam where there had once been dust. Children from the nearby town came to camp by the water. Daniel's orchards flourished, his cattle drank from the reservoir, and the land, his land, thrummed with quiet peace. Until the Homeowners Association came. It began small, surveyors and men in orange vests measuring boundaries, talking about community expansion and affordable luxury living. Daniel thought it was a mistake. His property lines had been registered since 1987. But when the bulldozers came, cutting roads through his orchard, flattening the wildflowers that grew near the water's edge, the mistake became something else entirely. Daniel's name wasn't on any document. His fences had been torn down, his no trespassing signs ignored. Every lawyer he called told him the same thing: the HOA owns it now. You'll need to take it to court. But courts cost money. And Daniel Brooks was rich only in soil and memory. He stopped going into town. He stopped answering calls. Every night, he'd drive his old truck to the ridge, stare down at the rows of shining rooftops, and feel something cold and unfamiliar spreading through his chest. The dam below him, his dam, fed those homes. His lake, his water, was now their backyard. The irony stung like salt. He started thinking dangerous thou. The day it all changed was a Thursday, the kind of dry, humming afternoon when the air feels like it's holding its breath. Daniel stood beside the dam gate, his weathered hand resting on the old wheel that controlled the flow. A single turn could release enough water to flood the entire development below. He wasn't a cruel man. But he was a man who had lost everything. He thought about Mary, her laughter, her gentle voice telling him, "Danny, don't ever let the world harden your heart." As the sun dipped low, Daniel turned the wheel halfway. Just enough to hear the rumble of water pressing against the gates. Just enough to feel power. A low growl rose from the dam's belly, echoing through the valley. And for a terrifying second, Daniel imagined the water rushing down, washing away those houses, the manicured lawns, the arrogance of people who'd taken what wasn't theirs. He looked up and saw a small girl standing near the lake's edge, her fishing rod tangled, tears on her cheeks. Her mother, one of the new homeowners, was kneeling beside her, trying to help. The little girl saw him and waved timidly. "Hi, mister," she called out. Her smile, innocent, trusting, punctured something inside him. Daniel turned the wheel back, closing the gate tight. The rumbling stopped. The valley fell silent again. He turned away, shoulders heavy, and drove home. But that night, he couldn't sleep. When he opened it, the woman from the lake stood there, holding a pie. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said nervously. "You must be Mr. Brooks. My daughter said you helped her yesterday. We didn't realize this land used to be yours. The HOA told us it was vacant for years." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Vacant," he repeated bitterly. She looked embarrassed. "They said an old man used to live here, but it got condemned." I didn't know that old man was you." Daniel should have slammed the door. But instead, he sighed and gestured for her to come in. Over pie and coffee, she told him her story. Her name was Sarah Cooper, a single mother, who'd spent her savings on one of those houses, hoping for a quiet place to raise her daughter, Lily. She had no idea about the property dispute. By the time she left, Daniel wasn't angry anymore, he was tired. Weeks passed. Sarah started visiting often, sometimes bringing Lily, sometimes a plate of cookies or a basket of apples. Slowly, Daniel's world began to thaw. He taught Lily how to fish, showed her where the best berries grew along the ridge. The neighbors started noticing the old man on the hill. Some kept their distance, but others began to wave, or stop by to talk. Daniel told them stories of how the lake was built, how every stone in the dam had been placed by hand. One evening, Sarah said quietly, "We're forming a community board. Would you come talk to us about the land's history?" Daniel wanted to refuse, but something in her eyes, the same earnestness Mary once had, made him agree. When he stood before them, 35 families in folding chairs under the open sky, he told the story of Clearwater Valley. Of the sweat and sacrifice that went into it. Of his wife, gone too soon. Of how the land wasn't just his, it was alive because someone cared for. Then a man in the back stood up. "Mr. Brooks," he said, "I think we owe you something more than just apologies." Within a month, the HOA voted to rename the community Brooks Lake Estates. They pooled together funds, built Daniel a new home overlooking the water, and offered him a permanent seat on the board. Instead, he asked for something simpler: keep the lake clean. Protect it. Let your kids know what this place cost. They agreed. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt pay. The following spring brought heavy rain. The dam groaned under the pressure, and Daniel, now 70, worked tirelessly to reinforce the gates. Then one night, he heard a crack, a sound that chills the blood of anyone who's ever built something with their own hands. He rushed out into the storm, flashlight in one hand, spanner in the other. Wind howled, rain blinded him, but he kept going. He reached the control wheel, slipping on the soaked concrete. The water surged, furious and wild. If the dam broke, the entire valley, his valley, would drown. He tried to tighten the release valve, but the wheel jammed. His strength was fading. Just as the dam shuddered again, strong hands gripped his shoulders. It was Sarah, soaked to the bone, shouting over the roar of water. "You're not alone, Daniel." Behind her came others, dozens of residents, young and old, holding ropes, sandbags, lights. Together, they fought the flood until dawn. When the sun rose, the dam still stood. Daniel collapsed in the mud, trembling, his heart full, not of anger, but of awe. He looked at the people around him, people who had once been strangers, intruders, and saw something Mary would have recognized immediately. Family. A year later, on the anniversary of the flood, the community gathered by the lake. They unveiled a plaque that read, "Greater than, in honor of Daniel Brooks, whose hands built this valley and whose heart saved it." Daniel smiled, tears tracing lines through the dust on his cheeks. He looked out over the water, the sunlight glinting just as it had that first day 30 years ago. Sarah came to stand beside him, Lily clutching his hand. "You know," she said softly, "if you hadn't opened that dam that day." She smiled knowingly. "I think you did, just not the way people think. You opened something else." Daniel looked out across the rippling water, his heart swelling. "Maybe so," he said. "Maybe it wasn't the dam that needed opening, it was me." That evening, as twilight painted the lake in hues of violet and gold, Daniel sat on the porch of his cabin, listening to the laughter of children echoing across the water. The homes below, those 35 roofs that once symbolized betrayal, now shimmered like lanterns in the dark. He thought of Mary, of how her voice had always been the compass that guided him back when he strayed too far from kindness. And for the first time in a long while, he whispered, "You were right, love. The world tried to harden me, but it didn't." The lake answered with a soft ripple. The dam held. The people thrived. And in the heart of one man who had nearly drowned in bitterness, compassion finally flowed free.